Hi there, my name's Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art. Welcome to my channel. Today it's time for Wedding Dress Sampler, block number 3. Let's get started. I am making 2 of this block today. I need 4 5-inch squares of dark, 4 5-inch squares of my wedding dress fabric. Then I need 4 4.5 by 5 dark and 4 4.5 by 5 wedding dress, and 2 4.5 by 4.5 inch squares for the centers. Now I could have used 2 2.5 by 4.5 pieces and join them together, but I'm making what I call a half square rectangle. I'm drawing a line on the reverse side of my wedding dress, splitting this rectangle in half, and I'm going to draw that line on all 4 of these 4.5 by 5-inch rectangles. So each half of this rectangle is going to measure 2.5 inches by 4.5 inches. For these blocks, I also need half square triangles. So I'm taking my 5-inch squares of wedding dress fabric, drawing a diagonal line corner to corner on the back side of each of the white squares. Now it's time to assemble these half square rectangles and half square triangles. I'm taking a 4.5 inch by 5-inch dark rectangle, putting it right sides together with the matching wedding dress, making sure my line is showing. I'm going to stitch down on each side of this line, both sides of this line, about 1/4 inch away from the line. After chain piecing down one side of the line, I flip the whole group around and stitch down 1/4 inch from the line on the other side. Now you'll see I'm doing the same thing for my half square triangles. I'm chain piecing down one side of the line, doing all 4 blocks. Then I will flip the whole thing around and stitch down the other side of the line. Once I have finished that, I am going to cut apart these units. Then I am going to cut them all in half on the line that I drew. Since this is wedding dress fabric, when I pressed these units open, I used the silk setting on my iron, and I used a piece of white cotton fabric between my iron and the square. To trim the half square triangles down to 4.5 inches, I line up a diagonal line on my ruler with the seam line of this half square triangle, and I make sure the left and bottom overlap 4.5 inches. Then I can trim the right and the top. Then I can flip this little unit around and line it up to 4.5 inches and trim the other two sides. The half square rectangle should already be 4.5 inches on one side, but we need to line up this seam line on our 2.25 line on our ruler, trim off the right, then flip it around and do the same thing to trim off the left, and it should be a 4.5 inch square after that. Once all those little units are trimmed up, I'm going to lay my two blocks out right on top of each other. My center block is the 4.5 inch dark square. My little half square rectangles go around the center with the dark to the outside. Then my half square triangles go to the four corners, and the dark triangle goes toward the inside. This block can be found in Barbara Brackman's Encyclopedia of Quilts. It's number 1646B, and it's called Grecian Square. I will be sewing these little units together in rows first. Then I will stitch each row together to complete the block. I like to use nesting technique and a clip for where these little units come together to make sure they do line up nicely for me. I think this wedding dress sampler number 3 came out very nicely. I really like it, and I hope you do too. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see you back again real soon.